Hello, everybody. I'm meteorologist Hutch Johnson joining you. Coming up in this episode of My Weather, we're going to talk a little bit about the nation's weather over the upcoming week. That carries us through the close of the month of January and heads right into the beginning of February. We have some significant warmth taking place in the northern plains, where record-setting heat has already been taking place, and that looks to continue. Also, the storm track across the nation is a familiar pattern. The West Coast, the Gulf Coast, and the East Coast stand the chances to see the most repetitive stormy weather over the next few days. Let's get right to it as we head into a look at the next 24 to 48 hours forecast by one model. Let's take a look at that right now. This is what's going on across the nation. Notice just how quiet things are in the nation's midsection. This is future radar. That's what you're seeing here. And as we take a look on both coasts, the forecast shows the future radar, and the future radar shows a couple of systems working through the Great Lakes and the North Atlantic states. Meanwhile, out on the West Coast, very wet weather will turn white in the mountains of California and the high-level terrain in the state of Nevada as well, where we already have some winter storm watches in effect. Now, as far as temperatures go, it's been getting hot. Let's take a closer look, though, at the forecast model for the snow as we look into the high country of coastal California, heading on into Reno and central parts of Nevada. These yellow areas you see here, winter storm watch, and as you take a peek, the National Weather Service is expecting locally seeing snowfall upwards of 3 feet near the mountain peaks in parts of eastern California, but many places will see total accumulations of over 1 to 2 feet of snow in California. And once we get into central parts of Nevada, not far from, well, Las Vegas down to the south, get into the high country, 5 to 10 inches of snow with wind gusts over 40 miles per hour are expected. What's the time frame? That's here, Wednesday evening into Friday as we go through the middle of our week. And that carries us right into the first of the month of February as we go through. Now, we do have a white weather and unsettled weather, wet weather in Seattle, Tacoma, Portland, Salem. At all these areas we'll see some very wet weather, and here is where the record heat is going to be over the next couple of days in the nation's midsection. Meanwhile, over the next 2 days, I do anticipate that we will be seeing wintry weather working its way here through the northern Great Lakes. Look at this, Saginaw, Detroit, Michigan, all having a chance at seeing some significant snowy weather as we head into your morning on Tuesday. So a weather wiggle works its way through the Great Lakes Wednesday morning. And then as we carry this through, we'll see areas with some icing potential. Indianapolis up to Toledo and Detroit with this system changing over to rain as it warms up. Then another system will work its way out of Ottawa and head into the northeastern United States as well. Now, we're going to take a look at that long-range forecast, but first, we're going to take a moment to visit just a little bit about the hot weather that's taking place in the northern plains. I'm meteorologist Hutch Johnson. It's a pleasure to be talking to you about the weather. I've been studying weather for the better part of the last 30 years as a meteorologist on the air for the better part of 30 years, 5 years in research, and up to 20 years of teaching in the classroom at the college level. Nathan, good to see you. Buddy, it's good to see you. I invite you to drop a comment. Let me know where you're watching from. Love to see that information. Hey, if you like the videos, give me a thumbs up. I sure appreciate that. And certainly a subscription to Hutch's Weather, always appreciated. Pass the word along, friends, as well. Now, one thing I do want to let you know as a meteorologist, we want to give you the what we know and what we don't know characteristics about the wintry weather. With watches in place for the mountains of California and Nevada, I anticipate we will have some very wintry weather in spots there as we narrow down the precise areas and precise amounts. It's too early to get into the details on specifically exactly where the heaviest snow is going to fall, other than it's going to be at high terrain. Now, in the East Coast and the Great Lakes region, these systems don't begin impacting some of you until a little bit later on. Let's talk temperatures, though, shall we? As we head into the day, I'm loading up the model data now for us. On Tuesday, I anticipate record heat in places you're going to hear like Fargo, North Dakota. Minneapolis set a record high today in the Twin Cities. It hit 50 degrees. Really, no, it's never happened before. It's a new record there, and we had record heat over the weekend in the Dakotas as well, including Bismarck and Fargo. That's going to continue. Let me take you back to the model, and we'll look at that. Hi, Nathan. Good to have you on from the Fargo area. Dustin, good to see you from East Grand Forks, North Dakota. That's Hutch's home country here in the Northern Plains. I've been covering weather here on the air for a long, long time, and it's exciting to do it right here on this platform. All right, now back to the models. We go for temperatures. Modeled temperature. Let's take a look at this. This model here is sharing with you a little bit of detail. I'm going to put it in 3D mode. Why? Because it's kind of fun. Okay, now we'll just give it a little tilt. Now, as we look into the Northern Plains, this is where the record heat is going to be. We'll give you an idea of what these temperatures mean, the colors mean, I should say, as we carry you through in time. Here comes the nighttime temperatures as we go through the night, and this crosshair here points out what the values will be in these areas. So let's go ahead and zoom in on that. I think I have to be out of the 3D mode for that to work correctly. Low temperatures as we go through the overnight into the morning will be near 25 to 30 degrees. That looks cold, and it sure sounds cold to many of you in the deep south, but I will tell you, average lows up here in the Northern Plains this time of the year are at 0 degrees. It is 25 degrees above average is what this means. Now, as we carry our way into the daylight hours, look at these temperatures as we head into your Tuesday. We'll let this carry through just a little bit. And here you see that we rocked into those 30s, mid 30s and 40s for our daylight hours. So another day with some 40s in the FM area, Fargo, Moorhead, Minneapolis, St. Paul will warm up once again as we go through the day as well. So near record heat for the Northern Plains will likely last for the better part of the week. Now, let's talk a little bit about the extended forecast as well. So we've talked about our 24 to 36 hour chance of snow in the Great Lakes and the mountains of the West Coast. Now we're going to carry it out a little bit farther for you to let you know what we have in store for us as we really dig deep into the month of February here and get things started. It looks like Geronimo joining from Minnesota. Good to have you on board as well. Hey, thanks for checking out the page. I sure appreciate the likes on the videos here. I'm loading up a model now that takes us out a little bit farther in the atmosphere. This is the American model, and it goes out a total of 16 days, which gives us an idea. And as a meteorologist, I have to say there's a lot of things we see online about big storms 16 days out. Watch out, plan ahead. It's a little too early to get excited about anything beyond about 3 to 5 days. The track of the storm, the intensity of the storm, they can all take a huge change as we head through the period. Now, here's a look at, again, we're going to take a peek at the future radar so you get a feel for where the storms are tracking as we head into the month of February. Here we go. Let's let it load. I'll load it in real time so you can see here. Geronimo, Nathan, and Dustin, good to have you on board, buddy, as well. All right. Check these patterns out. You see the stormy track of wet weather along the West Coast, hitting California multiple times over the next few days. We see some stormy potential in the Central Plains several times with 1, 2, 3 waves there toward the end of the model run. So let's carry this through a little slower, and I want to highlight 2 things. As the jet stream makes its way onto the West Coast, one of the things that we meteorologists pay attention to, I'm going to draw this big and blue so you can see the jet stream. Now, when we have a jet stream path that dives way south into California and then comes way up north and then kind of dives down, wherever we see these dips down, like you see here, those are called troughs. And when we get a downward dip in the pattern, that's where storms tend to form. And where this jet stream makes landfall on the West Coast will dictate where we have the storms making their impact. And right now, we have seen a shift in that pattern. That pattern is now more towards California than the Pacific Northwest. It still will be wet and unsettled in the Pacific Northwest, but the direct strikes seem to be making more of a beeline for Central California. What does that mean? That's going to bring these storms into the Central Rockies. What does that mean? Colorado lows developing in the downwind side of the Rocky Mountains spread out into the Central Plains. And that means the storm track into the Central Plains and eventually into the Great Lakes and northeastern United States are going to be more likely. So I will set this back into motion now as we carry the model through, and I'll erase my colored art and my drawings from the map here. And check this out. Now, Watch the West Coast as we head into, now you're looking at the date on the timestamp here, it's the 30th. That is the very early morning hours of your Tuesday. Set this into motion. Here comes the big storm system. Look at the size of this storm off the Pacific, impacting all the way from north of Vancouver in British Columbia down toward the southern coast of California. Things quiet for the northern plains, and not so quiet in Charlotte and into parts of the Carolinas, as we'll see some snow spreading through the elevated terrain there. Here comes everything's rained so far, but as we look into the West Coast system, boom, it starts packing the snow, upwards of a foot or two of snow as we go through the late day, and through the middle and latter part of the week, this storm system slides into the Rockies. Here it is, making entry into the Rockies, and as it does so, it's going to return into the Central Plains as a more potent system. So you're looking at a timestamp here of the 2nd of February in the morning. So that gets us all the way into Friday of this week, and it stayed quiet in the northern plains and not so quiet in the West Coast and along the Great Lakes region and northeastern United States. Watch this Colorado low develop right here. Here it goes. Kansas City down to Springfield, Missouri, Oklahoma City. Could this mean strong to severe thunderstorms? It could mean strong to severe thunderstorms in the central and southern plains as cold air moves off the Rockies and impacts the Gulf of Mexico moisture in the south. Yes, we could have some active weather in the central and southern plains. Watch the track of this storm, though. It sits here for a couple of days. It expands and covers hundreds and hundreds of miles, folks, from Sioux Falls, South Dakota to Mobile, Alabama, and the panhandle of Florida. Now, we have mountains in the elevated terrain of the southern portions of Montana near Yellowstone, northern parts of the Wyoming Rockies into parts of northern Colorado as well. Now, as we let this thing carry through, you're going to see the storm system really make more of an impact and dive back down to the south with a lot of rain. And we've had some flooding concerns down in the deep south. That's going to continue late this week into the weekend, in the first weekend of the month of February. All right, let's carry this through. Look at the activity just continuing along the West Coast and the Rocky Mountain West, from the Cascades near Spokane all the way down into Utah and the ski areas not far from you in Salt Lake City and western parts of Colorado. As we go through, we see the stormy weather exiting off the East Coast, but another low working its way into the Central Plains. The date here is the 7th. That carries us all the way into the 7th of the month is a Wednesday next week. So unsettled weather continues. Here's another Colorado low, bringing a chance for some unsettled weather to the Central Plains. Again, the track of this could be way off, and the intensity of it could be too. But it just shows quiet weather in the northern plains and an active trend all the way from the West Coast through the southern plains and into the Great Lakes, as well as the East Coast of the United States. That's what we can draw from the weather that we see on these models. I will let it loop here while we watch the pattern reset. Right here is the beginning. And as we head through this week, we'll have weather in the West Coast work its way into the Rockies, Central Plains as we head into the weekend, and the Southeast United States as we head into the early part of the following week. Active weather continues in the Central Rockies and, well, the eastern 2/3 of the nation, particularly from the Central Plains near Iowa, Missouri, and well, all the way down into Kansas and heading out into the Atlantic states. That is a look at the pattern as we go into the month of February, and the warmth will continue here in the northern plains for the better part of a couple of weeks, with nothing too active for places like the Dakotas and, well, Minnesota until we get into about the 10th of the month. And that's the way it looks right now. I'm meteorologist Hutch Johnson. It's a pleasure to talk about the weather with you. And again, anytime you're seeing anything on these weather channels, such as my own, that goes out anywhere beyond 5 days, please know it's an educated guess at the very best. Many models have a difficult time being super accurate when it gets that far out. But these models do help us set a trend and see a trend and how the activity and pattern changes that we notice in the jet stream look to play out over the next couple of weeks. I hope you've enjoyed what you've learned. If you do, I appreciate your likes and I appreciate your subscriptions to Hutch's Weather. Top of the cup to you. Have an awesome rest of your week.